And speaking of Battle for Disclosure, here is another exclusive cut. Guys, take a look at this. All right, that's available right now on all streaming platforms, Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Battle for Disclosure. The link is in the description. Now, let me tell you, these drones again, or these unknown objects, apparently just recently the DOD was denying that there's some kind of mothership coming in from Iran, releasing these out of bodies of water, the Atlantic, the Pacific. What do you make of this, Billy? Because this is kind of getting wild. I've never heard the media ever say or a lawmaker ever say the word mothership until yesterday.
Yeah, I know, mothership, So it's interesting because you really have to analyze the like Dr. Greer says, the words, the cymatics. They understand subconscious programming. These people have spent trillions of dollars in understanding subconscious programming so they control the masses on the entire planet. They know what they're doing.
Yes.
When they say specific things, they understand the frequency that it puts out and how it can take over the human mind, and it can program a person into a fear state. When a person gets into a state of fear, they're easily controlled. I mean, very easily controlled. And all the other things that have happened to us, all the false flags and everything prove that we bend to their will under fear. So they understand this. Think about this for a second. A civilization that's potentially 1,000,000 years ahead of us, right, can traverse the vast distances of space and time to get all the way to Earth just to shoot little laser beams at us and try to blow us up one person at a time, and there's 8 billion of us. Doesn't make any sense. If I'm a super advanced race and I want to come and take over planet Earth, I would simply do something as simple as get some DNA from one of the people, and that's as easy as grabbing some DNA from a glass they just drank from, or getting some hair out of the sewer, analyzing that DNA and figuring out what type of thing I can create to put into the atmosphere or into the water, and within weeks, everyone's gone, okay? So nobody's coming guns blazing, battling, fighting, shooting laser beams and blowing up the military. There's never going to be any type of a head-on battle against our military like that. They're too sophisticated. If they really wanted to do something, they would not blow us up like that. So the fact that they're going with the narrative of what we can see in our own idiom and our own limited understanding of technology and the way that war needs to be done, they're propagating this false narrative that there could be this attack via drones and probes and ships and things like that. I mean, killing 8 billion people one shot at a time. Come on. It's laughable. It's really laughable, especially for an advanced race of beings that can traverse space-time, that can traverse light years, that can bend space-time and create an Einstein-Rosen bridge and travel through wormholes. There's no way in the world they're going to come here with a bunch of drones, shooting at military ships and things like that. The average person has been programmed to believe that because of what we've seen in Hollywood. Hollywood has us programmed into believing this narrative. However, the truth is, in my opinion, and based on my research, I just don't see something like that happening. To me, it's laughable that type of situation would even occur.
Well, let me take it one more step. And that is, not only are the civilizations not doing that, but the organization that has been reverse engineering advanced interstellar craft for 70, 80 years. They have technologies now that are almost at parity. In other words, would be equal to or close to what an ET vehicle or NHI, non-human intelligence vehicle or craft would look like. And those are operational. And those have been used in false flag operations already. And if you doubt it, look at the testimony of Stephen Digna, right? Who was at a Army base in California back around 2000, where a Raytheon triangular object that almost had AI and bio nanotechnology where it seemed to be living. And when he touched it, it would purr and make this weird sound. And that was a man-made Raytheon device. Now, if 1 million people saw that and came up close to it, or everyone in Congress and in the White House saw it, they would think it was an alien craft, and it isn't. So the other part of this is that these clunky drones that are running around New Jersey and elsewhere, that is not what they really could stage a false operation with. The operations that I know they could launch involve technologies that would really just completely deceive everyone who doesn't know about it. It's why, by the way, probably 2/3 of this brief are the proof and evidence, drawings and photographs of the actual man-made UFOs and what their capabilities are, as well as a fact sheet of phenomenon that has been staged by humans as a psychological warfare operation versus the actual. It's a one-pager, and if that's all these leaders see, it's enough. So that is very important, because most people don't realize that the technologies, this is not the 1959 to 65 early man-made UFOs that were clunking around like you see from Mark McCandlish and Brad Sorensen, the so-called ARV from the Norton Air Show in 1988. Even in 1988, those were antiques. The ones that are now operational. Now, of course, imagine, as you mentioned, Billy, trillions of dollars in black budget funding, but also some of the most brilliant scientific minds I have ever met. They're not at Harvard and MIT. They're working in these covert programs with the aerospace and other contractors in very highly compartmented secret scientific operations. And that much money and that kind of brain power over 7 or 8 decades of research, there have been big breakthroughs. And they're in the hands of a group of sociopathic warmongers. And so this puts the entire world at risk until those are actually stood down. Now, here, let me get you to the next step. So this information comes out with these whistleblowers and the proof. The next step is that the United States government and others are going to have to authorize operations to stand down those weapon systems, because we are using very advanced technologies. And I was at 2 black sites, a little over a year ago, right before I was almost killed in a terrible injury accident, where we were present over 2 black sites that had these electromagnetic pulse and scalar weapon systems where they target and knock down the ET craft. And I have the video and photographs of them and the underground opening point for one of them. And so this has all been handed over to the government investigators, by the way. But after I handed over that videotape and photographs from that chopper I was in with this guy who's defecting, he's the head guy from these black sites, who's a senior operator, he's a non-official cover. So I can't say more than that right now. But I know what he's assigned to, I know what his cover is, and I know him very well. But that information, when he showed me what these capabilities were, how they were doing it, was astounding, because it also involved the use of a type of psionic interface, where a conscious thought interface can attach to technologies to hijack or move over these black sites, ET craft, so they can be hit with these weapons. He is going to disclose that methodology. It's going to be utterly shocking. It's going to prove everything I've been saying since 1991, when I wrote the paper about consciousness-assisted technology and technology that is assisting consciousness, and that the interstellar civilizations have that, but those have been reverse engineered and used as weapon systems by these covert programs. So we would have to have several hours here for me to unpack what that technological package is that humans have. But imagine people with that kind of technology, with this kind of malevolent intent, and the degree to which the Earth and our nation is at risk, and the degree to which they could stage false operations. So mission number 1, unfortunately, for this incoming administration and the new Congress is going to be, how do we get those monsters on a leash? How do we defang that monster? How do we neutralize these weapon systems that are in the possession, not of the ETs? If they wanted to make us go away, we would have been gone the day we detonated the first atomic bomb, my friend. But in reality, how do we defang? And I said this to a senior senator very recently, a couple of days ago. The enemy is always from within. And when I was meeting this past weekend with a number of incoming Trump officials and cabinet level people, I said the enemy's always within. It's always from inside. The Roman Empire fell from within. That people are always looking outside, and they're always fighting the last war in the rearview mirror. What we have to do is focus their attention on, after all this information comes out, as I said, the real battle for disclosure begins. Part of it is putting us on a positive path, but the other part of it that isn't going to be pretty is having the law enforcement and special forces capabilities to stand down in CONUS and OCONUS, continental United States and outside continental United States, these weapon systems. And they're all over the place. They're in the outback of Australia, they're in South America, they're at the South Pole, they're at the Arctic Circle, they're all over the United States, they're in places in Europe, they're in Africa. These, and they're on satellites, and they are on ships, and they are on land, and they are on aircraft. So those sort of systems have to be completely put back under control of some sane people. Right now, they're in the hands of the worst possible actors who have operated with impunity for decades.
You know, we've exposed in the documentary Battle for Disclosure a possible CIA connection with multimedia major magazines, where we spoke to the head editor of the National Enquirer, who his boss was a former CIA employee, and then later
well, no,
returned
he was
to the
also
CIA.
no, wait, he was an MIT guy who was embedded with the PSYOPs, psychological warfare division of the CIA, which is more important to note, my friend, because that is how the media has people embedded who are this narrative that Billy talked about. That's almost like it's scripted and they're parroting. That is where that comes from. It's very well put together psychological warfare, and the founder of the National Enquirer came from that culture.
Yeah, it's amazing, and how it's the Project Mockingbird and the infiltration in all media. We expose in Battle for Disclosure not only the National Enquirer and other magazines, even 60 Minutes, CBS, even the boss of CBS admitted that the CIA was coming in, controlling the narrative, when the CIA is supposed to be working foreign and not domestic. So obviously this is a breach of any kind of constitution.
Well, by the way, it's actually against the law that formed the CIA and governs the CIA. They are not allowed to operate domestically ever. And yet there are people like Jim Semivan and others who admit to being operatives for CIA domestically. This is black letter illegal. And one of the things I've been saying to some senior people attached to law enforcement, I can't say which agency, but very senior, very senior, is that why aren't we grabbing these people up and prosecuting them? What good do we have if we have laws and there are people running amok of the law, right? Why aren't we enforcing the law? Because if we have no civilization, if we're not a civilization of the rule of law, the Constitution, equal justice under the law, et cetera, and so forth, right? So if now we can prove that these are criminal activities, and by the way, the group that's coming forward are going to talk about the fact that they have been in an illegal operation. This is key. I've said this since the early 90s. Nobody believed it. These guys are going to confirm it. Now, interestingly, when I was in Los Angeles last year, this team sent an armored vehicle to pick me up and drive me around. And the guy who was driving, special forces guy, he turned to me, he says, "Thank you for what you're doing for those of us stuck on the other side." Great title of the paper, Stuck on the Other Side, or a documentary, because these guys are patriots. Let me be clear. These guys coming forward are and were patriots, but they were young men. Now imagine, let me put a human face on this. So we stop out of the all academic stuff, because I know these men. You're 18, 20, 22 years old. You're a special forces operator or whatever. You get moved into compartmented operations, which by nature, you don't know really anything except your operation. And you're told to do as you're told, and yes, sir, right? So they get pulled into these operations not knowing they're illegal. But the ones who are there now are senior enough. They're 30 years in, or the senior guy is 29 years in these illegal black projects. And now, once he got to a certain level, they've been following my work for years, and they go, well, damn, I am in an illegal operation, and they know it. And sometimes they break down in tears talking about the horrible things they've done in these illegal operations. These are good men who have been caught in a horrible system. But by the time they remember, you need to understand the details of this, folks who are listening. By the time they realize that they're in an illegal project, they've already been had and they can't get out. So what I've been trying to do is create a pathway that's safe for them to come out. So let me collect one more dot here. Connect. Very important dot, Billy, for you. All right, and people you know. The information they're going to give me as they come forward, because they've gone to ground now, they're only communicating with me. I'm going to hand off to every celebrity and every media outlet and every influencer I know. And I need you guys to do the same thing. And it'll be open source. It'll be on a site that is blockchain protected, that's now stood up. And it's got to be seen by several billion people within a few days. So that means it's got to go wide. We're not talking about ufology and a handful of UFO nuts knowing about this. The reason for it is that this summer he came to my place in Washington, and he says, we don't want to risk our lives and our families' lives. And the main guy has 3 children, 2 of them are still fairly young, and he doesn't want to have his whole family killed for no good reason. In other words, where this gets released and it's a tree that fell in the woods nobody heard. So I said, let me put together this asymmetric disclosure where, regardless of what the bureaucrats in Washington do, or London, or anywhere else, it's seen by a large number of people. It's like what I've always said, you squeeze the toothpaste so hard out of the tube, it cannot be put back in. But listen, everyone listening, if you're an influencer, if you've got a YouTube channel, a Facebook, TikTok, X, we're going to have it on a site where you can download it and put it everywhere. So this has got to go viral, and it's got to go hard. Now, I don't have a date. All I'm told is between now and early January, but we're going to need your help. This cannot be scrubbed and erased by the corrupt mainstream media. It's got to go everywhere.
Yeah, it's in everybody's hand.
And
Disclosures in community.
That is the promise I have made, but I can't do it by myself. I mean, I have a certain following, but I don't have, 2 or 3 billion people following.
Well, we're all going to get it out there for sure.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to say, by the way, if anybody's watching here, I'm sure there's tens of thousands of people watching right at this moment, but feel free to share this podcast and download it, upload it onto your YouTube channel. It's all clear. We just want to get the word out on this battle for disclosure. And speaking of battle for disclosure, I want to show a little sneak peek with regards to the National Enquirer CIA connection. Take a look at this. Paid for information. Could you imagine the information coming in? They paid big bucks. So people want to make money. They're going to sell information. These guys were ready to share it. And a lot of this stuff got suppressed. But the narrative that they put out on the National Enquirer was to dumb down this the UFO subject matter in general and make it seem that it was a threat. People are getting burns from these things. And if they were getting burns, these were the man-made vehicles. But Billy, it's interesting how things are rolling out. What do you think the major battle ahead of us is, and what's your take on battle for disclosure?
Well, the major take I get on battle for disclosure is we're putting disclosure in the hands of the people where it actually belongs, because the people actually have the power. We've been duped into thinking that we have no power, but we're the ones that have the power, and we have to realize that the governments of the world are supposed to be working for us, and that we're supposed to tell them what to do. They flip the narrative on us, and they brainwash us into thinking that we work for them, and we better do what they say or they're going to punish us. And that fear that they set in our hearts is what's been holding us back this entire time. And we also have to realize who is at the head of a lot of this secrecy. I believe it's personally the CIA. I mean, the CIA monitored investigations conducted by the Air Force for Project Blue Book. They were gathering intelligence back then. The CIA sponsored the Robertson panel, which was a group of scientists that were evaluating UFO sightings. You know, they concluded that, of course, most of the sightings were just swamp gas and natural phenomena. But every time you turn around, you find out that these people in this three-letter agency are controlling that narrative from behind the scenes with no congressional oversight, with no input from the president of the United States, and so forth and so on. So, in some way, shape, or form, that situation, that illegal situation, has to be dealt with, or has to be understood, or has to be addressed. I think that's the biggest linchpin in this whole thing, that's kind of holding it all from just the water fountains from just spewing out all the information, is that three-letter agency.
Well, here's a good bit of good news I learned about an hour ago.
Mm.
There are a couple people who are going to be moved into key positions at the CIA that I have known for some time, and who are supporters of disclosure and are very conscious people, and they're going to be in key positions in a few weeks. And I can't say more than that, but you know, I have to be very careful what I say about some of the methods and sources and people, but I'm talking about people I work with directly, and these are people who understand what's at stake, and they have come to events with me. I have met them. And so what I think is that there is an opportunity, whether it gets done, there's an opportunity to transform that into whether it's the Pentagon or the CIA or else, into a force that will be on the side of a truthful and positive disclosure that leads to a good future. But again, this is a battle because we're definitely the underdog. You know, the power and technology, and even from a tactical point of view, when I meet with these special operators and special forces people, not the defectors, but the ones who are being stood up to actually go and get these projects under control, constitutional control. These are separate groups I'm advising. I tell them, look, you're not going to be running up against a tank or a helicopter. You're going to be going up against anti-gravity devices and weapon systems that are quantum potential weapons and scalar and electromagnetic weapons that can make anything you have drop out of the sky like a rock. So, you know, this is a very complicated problem. And I've been spending a couple years now with these folks that if they have to go tactical, meaning operational on these black sites, they have to know what they're up against. So under the best scenario, given what is in the kit or the equipment of the legal government of the United States, they are enormous underdogs against the technologies that are there. And I know this because I've been at these places and I know what they have and what their capabilities are. So I'm sort of advising this group that it needs to be done in a way where we get people who are operators on our side. So this is one more appeal. You're going to see this material coming out in the next month or so. I would advise other people in other positions who are at these key black site facilities to come forward in the aftermath of this. This needs to be not a one-off. There needs to be more people coming forward. And also, if you are operational at any of these key facilities, such as Dugway Proving Grounds or Nellis or Edwards or any of these other facilities, that you cooperate with legal authorities in the United States and not pick up your weapons, but cooperate. Even if you're at a lower level and you don't know that the program you're in is illegal, let me tell you now, it is, and you need to not be on the wrong side of the law, and you need to make this a peaceful transition. I am optimistic, given who I know right now, what's going on, is that there's a decent chance that this whole 70-year legacy of these programs can be transformed without violence and without loss of life. That's my goal. I'm an emergency doctor. I save lives. I don't kill lives, take lives. But, you know, I'm hoping that that's done. But the way that happens is that people who are in these facilities go, like the ones who are now, they say, we're fed up with this. So they're coming, right? But they do it in a way that doesn't require countermeasures that have to be aggressive or violent, because we don't want that. But at the same time, you cannot let a bunch of power-hungry, crazed people with a earth-ending agenda, who have these sort of technologies to bestride the earth like a Frankenstein and have no one stand them down. So, you know, unfortunately, unless they transition peacefully, which this drone attack nonsense would indicate they're not inclined to, right? Then it's a problem. But the only way that the leadership of that organization is, and I don't want to get into that, I know who some of them are, and I've met with a couple of them, transition peacefully, is that no one's taking their orders down below. In other words, if they order the grunts, let's call them, and the operators at any of these facilities to fight back or do this, they go, no, we're not going to. You know, in other words, they defy. It would like be people in the Third Reich defying the rank and file, going, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do this atrocity, right? So this gets into a very personal, difficult decision where people will not follow the orders of their chain of command because they realize what I just said, that they're in an operation that is illegal and criminal, and therefore they're not required to execute those orders, right? Those organizations and programs are operating without the authority of the United States government or Constitution or president or Congress. Therefore, they can say, I don't recognize your authority. Now, back in the early 90s, when I was threatened legally for what I was doing, I said, oh, really? Come put on the bracelets right now, right goddamn now. And I said, I will then have a court case where we'll have to subpoena the president of the United States, the CIA director, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, XYZ senators and members of Congress, and they will have to testify under oath that even though they should know if it was a legal operation, they had no knowledge. And as soon as they say we were not informed or read in and did not authorize this, and it was an unsanctioned illegal operation, boom, you got them, because that's called treason against the United States. So I think that, I know I get a little bit agitated about this because I've been in this battle for disclosure for 34 years. But I think that we need to remind these guys and women who are in these covert facilities and corporations that they can come forward now because they're in an operation that's illegal. There's nothing, no law they're going to break. I mean, if what we have been doing against the law, I have top secret documents in here. Here it is. They're in here. And many of them I've already published. If this was a legal operation, I'd be in prison. I mean, look at the investigations they did against Biden and Hillary Clinton and Trump on top secret documents. Well, here they are. I have a bunch of them, right? But because we established in the 90s that these were criminal activities, because it's a criminal enterprise, they cannot claim that they are protected under the National Security Act or the laws of the United States. You can't have it both ways. What I've told members of Congress is like, you don't even have to do this in a skiff. Why would you, if you were trying to get to the bottom of a mafia operation, would you treat their secret illegal programs with a national security imprimatur and status and investigate it in a skiff? No. And this is no different. But most people in the U.S. government don't realize that yet. I would say virtually nobody. After what comes out, after this comes out, when these guys describe who they are, what they've been doing, and that they have been in illegal programs, then they're going to realize, all right, this is all true.
You know, I asked Congressman Tim Burchett with regards to technology, a possible rogue corporation, and he was pretty concerned. He said that keeps him up at night. Let's roll a quick clip of this interview exclusively on Battle for Disclosure, available right now. Take a look at this. Do you believe that there are private corporations?
Honesty.
All right, there it is. Congressman Tim Burchett. He says that would concern him highly. Right now, with this drone situation, it's interesting. We have Lockheed Martin and McDonnell Douglas sending out drones, chasing these drones. Is this a blue on blue, Billy? Is this what's your gut feeling where these drones are coming from? They're seen on the Pacific, they're seen on the Atlantic, all at the same time, hundreds, if not thousands of these things. Where are they being dispatched from?
I'm not sure where they're being dispatched from, probably from multiple locations geographically around the world. But like Dr. Greer said, I believe it's all part of just one giant psyop. So I think they're all working in collusion with one another. They meaning Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and all these other big corporations that take these private Pentagon contracts to do all this stuff behind the scenes that we never get privy to. And this gigantic drone operation is just one gigantic psyop. It's testing, first of all, the resolve of the citizens of the earth. Like, how will they respond to this? What will be the chatter about this? You know, how are they going to be afraid? How afraid will they be? Let's measure their fear on a scale of 1 to 10. Do you think this is enough to manipulate them? Let's also continue to do this because now we're dropping seeds into their subconscious that something can happen like this again, and it could be a bigger, more widespread attack with more damage and more death, and all these type of crazy scenarios. They really spend a lot of time and money doing these psyops, focusing on psyops, understanding how to get into the psyche of a human being, understanding how to manipulate people from the deepest soul-based level to get them to accept and do whatever they decide they want to do to them, to allow them to keep the boot on the neck, and we'll praise them and beg them to keep the boot on our necks because of the way that they've manipulated us. And this whole drone thing, in my opinion, is just another one of those things that you see where it's pre-planned, pre-set up, and coordinated. It's a coordinated event, but the average person won't be able to see it simply because of the programming they've been taking in from Hollywood, from the news feeds, you know, from everywhere else. And then now they are, man, this is crazy. We could be under attack soon. It's the end of the world. And this whole end of the world doctrine and all this other kind of stuff. It's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of the world. It's only the end of the world if we let it become the end of the world. It's up to us to have that battle for disclosure and make sure that we, the people, take back control of this planet.